Hey everybody, RPG here. Today I'm going to do a full demo and review of the RetroFlag PIStation Case with the LCD display screen on here. This also has a cooling fan in it, so that solves the cooling issue that I spoke about on the original PIStation Case. So let's jump into it. We're going to first take a look at the functions and features on here. I'm going to show you guys how to set this up with your Raspberry Pi 4, and then we're going to fully demo this, and then we'll jump back out here and we'll talk about what I liked and what I didn't like about the PIStation Case with the LCD screen display. Alright, so here we have our RetroFlag PIStation Case, which is compatible with the Raspberry Pi 4 single board computer. This includes the PIStation LCD screen. So if you see my video on the first version of this, you can see that the box is super durable, really nice quality here. I like to point that out because it's good to know that what we're being shipped our item in is durable, because that is always an issue with stuff like this, especially things that are made of plastic and can be easily broken in transit. Always good to know that they're putting top quality into the packaging on these amazing products. So I'm going to set that aside. So here you can see that we have our PIStation Case. We're going to flip up the screen just to take a quick little sneak peek at that. We have our 4.3 inch 800 by 480 pixel LCD screen here with built-in stereo. So you can see we have our speakers right here. Up here we have some volume controls up and down, as well as brightness controls right there. We're going to take a closer look at this in a few seconds though. Let's set that aside for the time being, and I want to show you guys what is included when you pick this up. So we have right here our heat sinks for our Raspberry Pi, which is nice that they threw those in. We have some screws for both the mounting of the Raspberry Pi 4 within, as well as the screws for the back panel of this case. Also included is a magnetic tip screwdriver, which is just a major convenience thing here. It's always great to have the perfect size that you need, because tracking down these smaller screwdrivers can be a bit of a hassle sometimes. We also have our cooling fan here. This is a great feature of this particular setup. Cooling fan was the thing that I had was really the only thing I had an issue with the original PIStation Case, because that was not included in there. So the fact that now we have a way to actually cool this is phenomenal. We also got this really cool carrying case here, which is nice to have. Really like that. So I'm going to set all this aside. Oh, and we do have the manual. So if you saw the original PIStation Case review that I did, you know that the manual here is done really nicely. We have diagrams across here, up there, shows all the connections that we need to make. This one obviously has some additional ones because we also have our fan connection, which we need to make note of, in addition to the regular connections to the pins on the Raspberry Pi 4. Same thing on the other side. A lot of great stuff on here, and it also gives you the information for safe shutdown scripts. So if you need to add those, you can do so with the instructions at the link provided in here. If you're using RetroPie though, then you already have that built into your card, so you don't have to worry about that. But we're going to take a closer look here, and I'm actually going to show you guys how we can set this up. So I have my Raspberry Pi 4 computer board right here. So we're going to open this up, show you exactly what you need to do to set it up, and then we'll test it out with RetroPie, play some games, and see what the performance is like. So we flip this open like so. I'm going to put this part closest to me, and I'll actually flip it over. So we have our two connections, and let's grab our Raspberry Pi 4. And what we're going to do first is we're actually going to take out our cooling fan. So once you have your cooling fan, you're going to actually insert that in. So you can see there's a little clip right here with two little tabs, and you're going to do this so the label is facing you and the letters are facing the way that they're supposed to here. And another way to tell is you want your connections, which come down right here, to be going out the left hand side. That is the best way to get a good fit in here, because these tabs will only hold it one way. So tabs hold it in place, and just moving this like that, there's no play whatsoever. So it's super safe and secure in here. There are mounting holes here and holes within the case. I can actually just pop this out to show you that. You can see that there's some holes in here. Now you can put screws in there if you want, but it's not necessary, because you can see here again, I'm trying to shake this. The only way to remove it is to pull those tabs back. Those tabs lock it into place. So now we're going to take our connections right here, and we're going to connect them right over here. So we're going to put the red one first, closest to us, just slide it right onto that pin. And then we are going to do the black one right here, right on top, right onto the pin above it. So it goes red and then black. So once our cooling fan is wired in and locked in place, we're going to take our Raspberry Pi 4 now, and we're going to just put on these heat sinks. So you just peel back the little tab on these, and there's a little adhesive on here. So we just line them up with each of the parts that we need to place them on here. And just like that, you can see I have all 4 heat sinks installed on my Raspberry Pi 4. So now what we're going to do is we're going to flip this over so we have the bottom side facing up. We're going to take this connection here, which goes into our USB, and we're going to put it into the regular USB. So the black ones, not the blue ones. The blue ones are USB 3. So they go right into place like this. Just kind of wiggle them, slide them in. So once our USB connection is made, now we need to take this connection over here, and we're going to slide it into the end of our pins. So there's a little tab on here you can see right there. That goes up against the end, so you really can't go wrong here. You just line them up until they fit, and then again, just slide them in like you did the USBs. Not too forceful, you don't want to break them off. The pins can be, a little fragile. All right, so now that we have both of our connections here, we have our connection to the pins here, as well as the connection to our USB up here. Now it's time to connect our micro HDMI to the micro HDMI converter on the PIStation case. So if I flip this up, you can see that our connection is right here. So it's going to be going into this port right here. So not the one closest to the 3.5 millimeter headphone jack, the one that's closest to our power connection, which is right here. So we're going to just carefully try to slide this into place. So you do have to be super careful and really kind of work around this connection down here. So I'm going to just kind of wrestle it into place. Best way is to actually put this end in first and then kind of pivot this in like that. So I'm going to do exactly that here. And you want to be super careful. You don't want to risk, bending anything or anything like that. So just be patient. You do have to kind of wrestle with it a little bit. It's a weird sort of connection to make. And boom, there I go. Got it right into place. And now I'm going to just firmly press this down, but not too aggressively. And you know that you have it fully connected if your holes line up with the posts in the back here. So you can see the hole here lines up with this post, and we are going to make 3 connections here with our screws. So if we get these black screws that were provided, you're going to notice that there's 3, but there's 4 holes, and we're going to be skipping this hole right here. So the black screws are going to go here, here, and here. We're not going to put anything into this one. We will make that connection, but it's going to go on once we put the back panel. So I'm going to take this nice screwdriver that they provided us with, which is a magnetic tip, which just makes this so much easier. And I'm going to start with this one. That's just personal preference, but I always like to use the diagonal ones first, and then I'll fill in the other ones usually. I always work in diagonals though, just because you don't want to sock down one side and leave one entire side, totally lifted off, because you can end up with the board getting too tight on one side, and then you have to go back and loosen it up. This is just the way that I prefer to do this. So that one's in. Now I can just put that final corner screw in, and then we can put the back panel on, because all of our connections have been made on the PIStation case. All right, so now it's time to put the back panel on. So that's going to go in just like this. You want to look for the side that has these cutouts. These are for the micro HDMI connections. This one's for the 3.5 millimeter headphone jack, and it's just going to sit right on like this. So you just have to line it up and squeeze it down. And we're going to put the 6 screws in here. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This one goes through the casing here, the back panel casing, and actually goes through the Raspberry Pi computer board and into the post behind it. So this is the reason that we left off that black screw underneath here, and then our final one's going to be over here. So let's get started putting those screws on. Same thing, I like to work in diagonals. So I'll do this one, and then I'll do this one, and we can just fill in the rest after that. All right, so we have all 6 screws on the back panel here, so we can flip this over. And let's take a quick tour of the PIStation case with the 4.3-inch 800 by 480 pixel LCD screen. So we just flip this open like so. You see we have full access to the screen here. Up here on the bottom of the screen, we have some controls. So over here we have our volume control. Plus is to go up, minus is to go down. Right over here on the other side, we have our brightness control. Minus to bring the brightness down, plus to give it a little bit more brightness. And then we also have this button in the middle here, which is a really cool feature. This actually switches our aspect ratio. So if we hit this, we can do 4:3 aspect ratio, or if we hit it again, we can do 16:9 aspect ratio. So love that feature. I can't wait to test that out. Now, looking down here, everything here is going to be very similar to that of the original PIStation case without the LCD screen attachment. So we have our open button right here. If we hit that, it opens this panel. We have some ventilation here for the Raspberry Pi computer board, but this actually lines up perfectly with the cooling fan as well. So great to pop this open and get some airflow in there. Right here, hard to see in the video, but there's a little outline of a micro SD card. So this little tray here is a great storage space for additional SD cards. If you're somebody like me that uses 2 different RetroPie game collection cards, then I could be using my 512 gigabyte card and put the 256 in here, or vice versa. Great little space to store it and just close it to secure it. We have a reset button right here, and we also have a power button, which I love having the power button because with Raspberry Pis, unless you have the cable that has the little toggle switch to, cut the power or add the power to your Raspberry Pi 4, then you physically have to remove the power supply cable every single time to cut the power to your Raspberry Pi 4. We can have safe shutdowns, within our collection card or whatever card we're using on the Raspberry Pi, but that's not going to cut the power feed to the Pi. That's just going to safely shut down our software within the micro SD card. So having a button like this just makes it so easy. You don't have to physically remove that cable connection anymore. You just tap the power button. So we'll close this for now. Let's look at the front. So here we have 1 and 2 for USB connections. So if you're using a wired gamepad controller, you can make your connections here, but we actually have full access to the additional USB ports, so we can go up to 4 players wired in. So if we go over here, we have a removable panel here. So all we have to do is just push this tab in like so, and we can remove that side panel. In here, we have access to our Ethernet cable connection, as well as to our USB 3 ports. So this is where you can put in the additional controllers if you'd like. And you don't have to use wired controllers. You'll need at least one or a keyboard to set up RetroPie, for example, just to get started. But you can use Bluetooth gamepad controllers if you prefer to do that. Then you don't have to worry about any of these USB connections. So I'm going to put this side panel right back on. Love the fact that we have a side panel that's removable. Just keeps, dust from gathering in any of those connections if you aren't using them all the time, which most people aren't using all of them all of the time. So let's take a look at the back side here. We have access to our 3.5 millimeter headphone jack back here. Like that's recessed in, so it's not up front where you could potentially do damage to it, or if it were to fall, it could break, because that does usually protrude out. Love the fact that, again, that it is recessed in. So here we have a full HDMI connection. So inside, when we made that micro HDMI connection, it actually converts it to full size, which is cool because these are actually a lot easier to find than the micros. So pretty much everybody has full size regular HDMI cables on hand. That's what you'd connect like a DVD player or any major game console to your TV. Over here we have our DC in, so this is our power supply port. So this is where we will be providing our power cable to a Raspberry Pi 4. All right, so that's everything. Let's flip this over though. On the back side, we actually have our micro SD card slot. So it's recessed in here, so you can just slide your card in. And in fact, I'm going to do just that. I'm going to take my micro SD card here. I have my 512 gigabyte RetroPie game collection card here, ready to slide in. You're going to do it so the graphic is facing you, and you just slide it right into place like so. and it slides in super easily. To remove it, also really easy to remove. You just kind of pinch the little ledge that's on the card and it slides right out. So love the fact that it's all kind of recessed in there. They did a nice job of keeping that consistent throughout all of the different connections on here. So, you know, it's not something you could snag. There's no way that you'd ever be able to accidentally eject that. You'd have to totally just, you know, stick your finger in there, grab that ledge and, you know, physically slide it out. So we're gonna flip this over, make our connections, and power this on. So I'm gonna just take my power cable right here, flip this over, and I'm able to just plug that in right here on the end. Now, if I wanted to put this up onto a TV screen, then I would also connect my full-size HDMI from the actual PIStation case directly to my TV or monitor. But I want to test out the LCD screen on here, so we're just going to flip this open and we are going to hit our power button.
Round 1, fight! You win. Round 2, fight! You win.
All right, so one last thing I want to point out, because I actually didn't even realize this right off the bat. It's not really detailed in the instructions here, but we can actually pull this back panel off. So there's 2 screws right here, and if we loosen those up, we can actually fully remove this. So let me just loosen that by hand a little bit, and we can just pop this whole panel off. And here you can see we have our micro HDMI connection. So we could go direct from this if we wanted to, and we could just plug this in when we want to use it portable, or we can just use this connection here to our TV and it'll override the actual LCD screen here. So there's actually really no reason you need to take this off, but it is a feature on here. So did want to point that out because it took me a minute to actually realize this was in fact a possibility. So definitely worth mentioning.
All right, so we jumped in here. We did a full demo of the setup process for installing your Raspberry Pi 4 inside your PIStation case with the LCD display. So that was super straightforward, really not a difficult process at all. Some additional connections to make on here since we do have to accommodate that LCD screen display. So we have to put in the micro HDMI converter portion of this and then the cooling fan. That's how this differs from the original PIStation case, but for the most part, again, very straightforward. The directions are on point. So we have the capability to remove the display portion of this, which I showed you at the end of the video here. And I really do like that. I don't think that there's a lot of reason that you would need to remove that unless you just aren't happy with the bulkiness of this, because obviously it does add quite a bit to it when you have the display attached. So if you know you're going to be using this with a TV or monitor, not utilizing that display, for conveniency, you would be able to remove that. Now you don't have to, because you can just plug a full regular HDMI cable into the back of the display, and it's going to override that display and bring your picture up to your TV or monitor, whatever you're connecting this to. So I love the dual purpose and functionality there. I think that's great. We obviously have a cooling fan on this particular version. That was my only issue with the original version. Didn't have a cooling fan, so you run into, overheating issues depending on what game collections you're in or how long you're gaming. This isn't a massive fan by any means. It's one of the smaller ones out there, but it's sufficient enough to get you through any of your game collections. If you're playing for a ridiculous amount of time, then you may still, encounter some potential overheating, but I highly doubt that anybody's going to be on here playing for like 18 hours. I mean, it's a little excessive for any Raspberry Pi or cooling fan setup. So, other than that, I think you're going to be in good shape for gaming in any of the collections available on RetroPie. And again, the ones that really stress the system and potentially heat it up more is PlayStation, N64, Dreamcast, and PSP. Everything prior to that, you would be able to get through even without a cooling fan. So it's always an added bonus to have that. It's going to be better for the longevity of your Pi computer board as well. So great to see that they've included that here. Now beyond that, all the different functions on here are pretty much identical to the original PIStation Case without the display, because it's pretty much the same exact unit, just with the LCD screen attachment and the cooling fan added in. But performance on here is great. The screen quality is phenomenal. You can see in the video, super crisp. Sound quality is great. I love the fact that we can adjust brightness and the volume externally on here just by touching those buttons on the actual case. So really love that. I also love the fact that we have the aspect ratio buttons, so we can switch from 4:3 aspect ratio over to 16:9 aspect ratio. I think that's great. Really is a added feature on here that you don't see on anything remotely similar to this. So with gaming, obviously retro games, most of them are on 4:3 aspect ratio, but if we are accommodating like a regular modern day TV screen, they're all 16:9. So what typically gets done is we add in bezels. Bezels are just side graphics that fill in the extra space, or of course we could stretch the 4:3 screen size for those original games. Usually you do run into some issues where there's going to be pixelation and stuff because you're taking a screen that should be regular square and you're stretching it this way. So you might have cut off, you may have some stuff that just doesn't line up well. So I typically don't like to stretch screens if I can avoid it. Some collections work out, like PlayStation usually stretches perfectly fine, but stuff like N64, Super Nintendo, Genesis, stuff like that, it looks really weird. It doesn't look crisp like it was intended to. So I find that bezels are a little bit better if you aren't happy with the open, blacked out space on either side. So you can kind of pick and choose with this particular setup here because you have that button right there. It doesn't take, any time to just tap that button twice and switch from 4:3 to 16:9. So just adjust accordingly. Absolutely nothing wrong with doing that. You're not going to mess anything up within your RetroPie card or anything like that. It's totally external, so it's not changing anything in your software. It's just changing your actual display. So beyond all of that, everything about this case is great. It cost me about $95 to get this entire setup here. A little bit expensive, but we're paying for the design here really, and the convenience of having a display built in. So I think that it's priced fairly. It's certainly not a cheap case by any means, but for what you get and the quality of the build here, I definitely think it's a fair price. So that's really going to do it for today. Hopefully you found this video helpful. If you're considering purchasing this, you can check out the different functions, features, and overall performance of the PIStation Case with that LCD display screen. So that's going to do it for today. If you guys enjoyed this video and you found it helpful, smash the like button for me. If you have any questions or anything like that, feel free to hit me up in the comments section. Always happy to help you guys out any way I possibly can. And then of course, hit the subscribe button in the bottom corner of this video if you haven't yet subscribed. I do a ton of different videos on here based on retro gaming, product reviews like this, gameplay demos, tutorials, the Forgotten Favorites YouTube series every Monday and Thursday night. So tons of great content on here. Best way to stay in the loop is to hit that subscribe button. So again, that's going to do it for today. Thank you guys so much for watching.